What's up, everybody? Welcome to my very first Movie Quotes Jones movie review. The first one. And you got to see it. You were here at the beginning. When I become very, very wealthy by doing this, when the money starts to, roll in, I will remember you. I won't give you any money, but I'll remember you. Now, the review that I'm going to start here is going to be the first season of the YouTube series Cobra Kai, which I watched in preparation for the second season that just came out. Let's just jump right in. Now, quick preface. I had to watch the first season twice before I really dug it. First time through, I was kind of like, I don't know. I just don't know. So I went through it again, and then I think went through it a couple more times subsequent to that, and I'm on board with it. I really enjoyed it. Here's some of the things that I really liked about it. Number one, of course, William Zabka, portraying Johnny Lawrence. It was excellent. He was so good. He was stoic, but he had this intensity about him, and he kind of showed some emotion through that stoicism, but mostly he just got real intense. But he was a relatable character. I guess you can call him an anti-hero. Well, not you. I would call him an anti-hero, I suppose. But I found myself pulling for him pretty early on. They do a pretty nice job. All the characters seem like they're, I don't want to say cliches or stereotypes, but I feel like there are certain norms that have been established in drama. And each of these characters definitely displays, some kind of commonly established trope. Nothing groundbreaking there. But what I did like was that they were developed in pretty good depth, especially Miguel and Eli/Hawk. Like Eli kind of transforms into Hawk in the middle of the season, and it caught me off guard. I thought he was going to run home and cry and sob and whatever, but no, he came back with a wild haircut, stupid but wild, big ass tattoo, and he was pretty cool for a while. The last episode, you kind of don't like him very much. He kind of turns into a jerk. But Miguel, you kind of always feel for. Even at the end, again, at the end of the last episode, at the end of the tournament, like, I didn't feel contemptuous of him. I felt more like sorry for him. I was like, oh my god, I can't believe you did that. Like, this dude's going to be hating himself here in the next couple days, I bet. Which is exactly what turned out to happen, in the next season. There's some fan service in there. This is another plus. And I feel like it's just enough and it's treated well, so it's not shoved down your throat most of the time. And if you watch it repeatedly, you'll find more and more stuff. Well, I found more and more stuff as I watched it repeatedly. I don't know what you do. There is one, however, that insinuates itself on you that I didn't like, and that was the crane kick at the end, again, at the end of the season in the last episode. Like, Daniel, mopes in, he's all upset, and he looks up at the 1984 poster of him in that iconic, crane kick pose. And then, like, moments later, Miguel crane kicks a dude and wins the round that way. And I'm like, didn't it take Daniel, like, months to learn how to do that correctly? Like, I don't know. I feel like we didn't need it right after the poster. Like, oh, he won with a crane kick. That's right. I seen the Karate Kid. I guess it's a pretty minor gripe, but, it's a gripe. I remember being like, okay, crane kick. I get it. Crane kick. There was some pretty funny stuff in there. There was a situation involving the color of a mat at the tournament and some snark. And then there's this character, like, I think he's the current karate champion that, Miguel ends up beating. And he's going on and monologuing and soapboxing, and you're watching it, you're just going, oh, gah, And it shows Johnny and Miguel. And Johnny looks at him and whispers something like, kick that pansy bitch right in the face. Or something like that. And I remember thinking that was hysterical because that's exactly what I was thinking. I want to kick him right in the mouth. And Miguel looks at him and he's like, yes, sensei. Totally, yes, thank you for giving me that option. So I guess it is Miguel that beats him after all. Okay, let's move into the area of what I found to be lukewarm, where I can't really make a decision either way. But the thumb is probably more inclined to point down. This is the kind of guy that I am, very cynical. And that would be Daniel LaRusso. I just don't know about, like, him as a guy. Like, he's more assertive and more sure of himself, obviously, after years of, you know, running a successful dealership and building wealth and marrying a beautiful woman and all that. He's not quite the puss cake that he was in the series. He won all the tournaments and he won that fight at the end of Karate Kid 2, but he was still a total, like, wuss throughout. He was a nice enough dude, whatever, and I'm not, you know, don't get me wrong, but he was kind of a wimp. In this one, he's not a wimp. He's very assertive, you know, he stands up for himself, stands up for his family, but at the same time, he says some weird, like, he says things in a weird way. Like, there's this part where he asks Johnny a very common line that you hear in TV, "Are you insane?" And he's like, "Are you insane?" Or something like that. And I'm like, who says it like that? That's so weird. I remember, like, literally being, like, caught off guard, like, what? Nobody talks like that. Are you insane? Do you know who talks like that? Do you know who says that phrase in that way? One person. Daniel LaRusso. Not me, not you, not anybody. I don't think. Probably not. I've never heard anybody say it that way before. So he says some weird things, and he, you know, delivers some weird lines, I guess. I'm not an actor, so who the hell am I to make such an observation? But that's just how I feel. As a person in the audience, that's how I feel. I just don't know. I don't know. I know I love William Zabka. I know that. I'm going to come back to that. There's this thing that he does where he yells, "What?" at basically everybody. Like, it starts with just the students, but he ends up yelling at a bunch of people. And it's hilarious every single time. It really is. No matter who he yells at, everybody stops and looks at him. And so I liked that. I thought that was hysterical. Never, ever got old. Johnny Norris was just a great character. Daniel LaRusso was a very... I don't hate him. I just don't believe him as much, I guess. Okay, now for the cons. First things first, I really didn't like Sam LaRusso. I didn't like her as a character. I didn't really like the actress that played her. I'm sorry, I'm not trying to be a jerk to anybody. I just didn't... Her voice got on my nerves. Now, I know what you might be saying to yourself at this point. But your voice gets on my nerves. Well, that's fine. Anyhow, I didn't like her character. She spent the entire time basically, like, whenever she would do something wrong, she would just do whatever she could to cover her own ass. She pretty much sold her friend Aisha out to her terrible rich friends, and at the very end they kind of make up, but it's not like... I don't know. I didn't like how she handled that situation. It's explained in the show that she's trying not to be a nerd, you know, she's trying to find her way. Fine, she's trying to find her way, she's trying not to be a nerd. She was still horrible to her friend. To placate and get along with and keep the status quo with her terrible, bitchy friends. That brings me to her terrible, bitchy friends. They are all awful. Every single one of her friends, the rich ones that is, are awful people. Like, it's crazy how over-the-top awful they are. They're douchey and terrible, horrible people, and some of them have the... Well, I just don't like some of their names. Let's just put it like that. There's a couple in particular. I'm not going to say them because, you know, if that's your name, I don't want you to feel bad. But some of those guys' names were terrible, and they were all terrible people. They don't even kind of compare to the Cobra Kai from the first movie. Remember those guys? They weren't, like, the nicest dudes. They were the antagonists, of course, so you kind of don't like them. But look, from a totally neutral standpoint, assuming you weren't supposed to look at them from Daniel's standpoint, they weren't terrible. I mean, you know, they partied and thought about girls and, you know, were into karate and shit. I at least believed that they were, you know, teenage kids. Rich teenage kids, but they still seem like teenage kids to me. Like, these guys are just... These new guys are just horrible. You know what I compare them to? If you've ever seen Hellraiser, the Cenobites from the first Hellraiser and the second Hellraiser are awesome. The ones from the third and every other one forward are just, like, terrible, like, bad. They suck. Let's just put it that way. They suck. Just like the friends in this suck. And she eventually, you know, they don't come back in the second season, thank God. She eventually, you know, goes and leaves them, you know, they eventually, they part ways, which is nice. But we're still stuck with Sam LaRusso. Okay. This brings me to the big thing that I want to make sure that we bring up, and that is the fact that I feel like there's a false premise problem here. Let me explain what I mean. In the Karate Kid in the first movie, when Johnny gets crane kicked right in the mug, you know, by Daniel, gives him a taste of that foot, knocks him to his face on the, you know, knocks him to the mat. He like climbs around on the mat for a second on his face because it hurts, and then he gets up and like grabs the trophy from the MC and hands it to Daniel. and it's like, or the announcer, what the hell ever you call it at a karate tournament, and you know, at the end of the day, he ends up being kind of a good sport about it. I mean, it took him being a jerk to Daniel the entire movie, and losing, you know, by 1 point at the end after cheating, to finally, you know, act like a good sport. But in the end, he mans up. You know, he won. I couldn't even beat him by like cheating. You know, and he didn't. I don't think he wanted to cheat. If you remember, Kreese told him to, and he gives him this like terrified look, like, "Are you being serious right now?" And Kreese kind of intimidates him into doing it. So he wasn't even necessarily a terrible dude to begin with. He was just a bad guy in that movie. And at the end of the day, he kind of comes through. He's a good sport. Now, let's compare that to the beginning of Cobra Kai Season 1. You know, he gets crane kicked right in the mug again, right? Psh, right in the face. Right in the face. And down he goes. And then he, like, lays there for a while. And then he kind of, like, swats the mat with his hand, I think. And then it fades forward to modern times. I don't really feel like the ending of the first movie and the beginning of the first season follow. You understand what I mean? It's like in Star Trek, where like Chekhov was not in the episode that Ricardo Montalban was in the first time, like when it first aired during the series, and then in Wrath of Khan, Khan is like, "I remember you." I'm like, "Wait, no, you don't. We live in a time where you can go back and check, you know, make sure you're right or whatever." So that's kind of how I feel about this too. I don't feel like the beginning of Cobra Kai logically follows the end of the Karate Kid. Now, if you can think of a reason why that is, then maybe you should, you know, let me know, put something in the comments, put whatever your thoughts are. I just am trying to find the simplest way to explain it, and I just can't come up with anything that doesn't require a whole bunch of steps. And I feel like as an audience member, again, not as a film expert or even a film critic or anything like that, just as a guy who's in the audience, you know, I feel like they could have planned that better and made it seamless instead of making me scratch my head and have to do all kind of logical, you know, gymnastics to make it work. Anyways, at the end of the day, I still enjoyed it. A little bit of cognitive dissonance with that, what I consider to be a false premise, but aside from that, if I'm willing to just not, you know, think about that, it's a fun series to watch. If I had to put a grade on it, I would probably just give it a B+ and call it a day. So, thank you very much for hanging with me to the end if you're still here. I hope you enjoyed this. If you have any suggestions for how I could be doing better, let me know. Please be nice, though. And I will do Cobra Kai Season 2 next. Bye.